So Earl, we are here with your chickens, and we are in what I would understand to be one of your Syntropic beds. So let us start first with a Syntropic bed. What is a Syntropic bed? What is Syntropic?
So Syntropic agriculture is really about designing sites that look like how a forest would regrow. So it's very dense, it's very bushy, there's a lot of things planted in it, but they all have certain time that they spend within the system and then they're removed.
Right.
So like we have the banana tree over here, we have the pineapple tree, we have the cocoa plant over there. Most people when they plant cocoa would just plant one tree and then every 15 feet they'd plant the next tree.
You keep the model, right?
Yeah. But in that space, it's very unnatural for cocoa to be planted with lots of space around it out in the open. We've actually created like a little forest that has a little immortelle tree over here. It has some cassava over here. It has all the pineapples here. It has the banana plant. And within that, we have the cocoa. So that while the cocoa is growing and maturing to when we can get cocoa pods from it, we're harvesting a lot of other things out from that system, so that it's paying for itself a lot quicker than if we were just waiting on that one cocoa crop to start coming in.
Yeah, because you no longer, I mean, even though we have, well, we kind of left chickens behind, we're not putting all our eggs in one basket, right?
No, and then the chickens is just an added bonus, is that we have the area fenced and we let them out in here and they actually take a lot of the weeds, so that it would actually take us 2 or 3 days to weed in here, but the chickens keep it clean.
Okay.
And then that allows for a lot of the other plants to keep coming up. And then all this grass that you see over here, every month we cut it all down and put it on top of the soil, and then that cuts back a lot on how much fertilizer we need to use, so that
because
we don't...
This is where we learned about, sorry to cut you, but this is where we learned about biomass. This is one of your biomass generators.
Any plant that is growing within the system, we can just cut it down and put it on the soil and it has use. So that even a weed in the system is useful to us. It will provide biomass. So we just cut it and keep covering the soil. This whole area was really poor. Nothing would really grow here. And since we've done this system, we're getting a lot more production out of it.
And let's be clear, you said this area was poor, but you are on a massive clay deposit, right?
Yes, so all of this is just what they call sapate clay.
Right.
During the dry season, it's like concrete. During the rainy season, it's like a swamp. But by us having all of this vegetation on top of it, it starts regulating the water. When we cut down all of this, it starts adding organic matter back into the soil, and then we bring back life in the soil, and that life actually starts working in the soil, and it starts creating a soil that you can actually work with again and grow stuff with. But if you just have bare clay, you can't really grow much on it without putting a lot of chemicals, which is something that we just don't want in our system.
Yeah, because all the clay will do is when the sun is baked and contract, and then when the rain comes, it'll just expand. You're not going to absorb any water in your soil.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to grow in those kind of conditions, and there's a lot of places in Trinidad like that. And by incorporating trees, like you can see the big immortelle trees, the big cedar trees, they will actually help control some of the moisture in the soil, so that when it's too wet, they transpire a lot of it, and when it's very dry, they actually bring up water from deep down.
The trees will help control the moisture in the soil. That's what you've just said, right?
Yes, as well as their shade helps keep moisture within the area, so that we actually cut down on our irrigation, because all our beds run north-south instead of traditional east-west, so that as the wind blows, if you have east-west beds, they would dry out very quickly. But as they go north-south, it kind of breaks up the wind so that the moisture stays within the system.
So because of how you've planted the beds in a north-south, right? We get the northeast trade, so we're getting an easterly breeze coming onto us now.
Yep.
Because we have these rows of blocks, you're telling me that it's actually changing the dynamic of the temperatures within the bed?
Yeah, and it's actually encouraging, as the wind swirls around, it actually drops moisture into the system from what we've been seeing and from what other people have told us, so that you can actually help keep the system more moist by planting it this way. You still have to come and prune, because you don't want too much moisture, otherwise you might get fungus problems, but it's about managing a system like this.
So you are not only amending the soil type that you've got here, but you are actually bringing hydration and moisture and trapping moisture in your system?
Yes, we're almost changing the climate.
Yeah.
We're changing this microclimate, so that if you came here 2 years ago, this was hot and dry. and now you're in this system that's moist, it's lush,
None of
there's
our
a lot of
shirts have sweat on
vegetation.
them. We
No,
cool.
you're feeling cool.
And therefore
You're
the
not
plants
trying
are
to
doing
look
the same
for a
thing
spot
too.
where you can hide from the sun.
Right, and therefore the plants are having that experience too. They're not just burning, they're not drying
Right.
out. And the soil is not drying out either because the soil is covered with vegetation, with leaf litter.
Exactly. So we have many different layers in here. We have the tall trees that are providing shade high up. And then as you come down, there's more and more shade. But certain things like the shade, certain things like the sun. So a lot of the sun-loving things are no longer growing here, but we have a lot of the shade-loving things like the pineapple, the cocoa, the ginger, the turmeric. A lot of that is thriving in these conditions. And there's still a fair amount of sun in here that the bananas are still producing. Like there's a head coming up by you, there's bananas on a lot of these. And 2 years ago, it was very difficult growing any of that here, and we use absolutely no fertilizer in this system. We
No
just
synthetics.
recycle. No synthetic fertilizer.
So you're not on sides. You're not on pesticides, fungicides.
No, we don't use any fungicides, we don't use any pesticides. We have no need for herbicides because the chickens are coming through, and then the chickens will naturally fertilize. And then every time we cut any of this material, it has nutrients in it that go into the soil, and all the other plants pick it up. So
Well,
that
most people will tell you they don't want chickens in the garden. So I mean, what's the role they said? So we understand that they fertilize, right? Because they walk around and they do their
Yeah.
business. We fertilize. But what other benefits are
Well-
having chickens in my space coming? Then they go eat all my peppers.
Well, we had pimentos growing there, and they left them alone. Once they get up to a certain size, so again, it's all about management.
Right.
You let the chickens in here at a certain stage of this process, so that at that point they're helping the system along, and they're not destroying the system. So again, it comes down to management, and if you're a good manager, you will have the ability then to work with many different crops at once, which
Okay.
is encouraging, because with climate change, as they say, if you just have one crop and the climate as it's behaving now, you could lose all that crop very quickly. But by us having this diversity, if something doesn't come properly this year, there's other things in the system that are coming, so that we still have some kind of income. We even have flowers that are planted, heliconias and ginger lilies, so that even if there's no food growing here, we're still making money from cutting those flowers.
Which is one
and
of the
selling them.
primary incomes on the farm,
Yes,
right?
so we grow heliconias and ginger lilies, and twice a week we cut them, and we sell them to the flower shops, or we sell them to at the Horticultural Society flower market. And that is the main income. That is kind of a base income that we operate on from the flowers. And then everything else that happens is kind of added on to that to help us meet our running costs, because it costs us between $10,000 to $20,000 a month to run this place.
Okay.
So that includes if the tractor breaks down, if other things break down. At some point we end up
If fire,
having to
take all your
spend,
sprinkler systems.
we have to buy that. Or even if the sprinklers only last a year and we need to buy new sprinklers, or it has to pay for the electricity bills, it has to pay for a lot of other things that keep us running on this farm. So that is where we kind of break even with the flowers, and then everything else helps us go past that.
Okay. I want to understand a little bit more about the Syntropy bed. So, I mean, permaculture and Syntropy is about mimicking natural systems. Syntropy more so towards a forest environment.
No, Syntropy is more just a very organized way of growing things. Yes, it is towards a forest environment. If you came to Trinidad, when Columbus came to Trinidad, it was mainly covered in forest. Forest systems are adapted to growing in these types of soils, and if you take that idea and you work with that forest system, then you can still grow things that you want to grow, but you have to maintain the trees within the system so that you can have your trees spaced properly, and then you can still grow your peppers, your okra, your baigan, everything within it. But as long as you manage it properly, you can get a lot of different production happening.
So the reason why I asked that is because a couple sentences ago you said that there is still enough light for the banana trees. If I understand what this model projects, these beds are really more for long-term growth.
Yes, so
Because your banana trees are eventually going to be shaded out. And
the long-term plan for this area is really cocoa and timber.
cocoa and timber.
But cocoa will take 3 to 4 years before it starts producing, and the timber will take us 25 years before we can actually cut from it.
Right?
So during that time, we're generating other things that are coming in here. At a certain point, we would cut all of this down and restart. There are systems, so this is one of the syntropic systems. There are other systems where you can do intensive production between tree lines where you space the trees more, because the trees, their root system will benefit the system in general, and you can do other crops. But for our situation and for what we're trying to achieve here, this is the type of system that's working, where eventually it will just be cocoa, a few bananas, and the timber trees in the system.
For a second it looked like it was turning into a chicken racetrack. Well, thank you. Let's go have a look at your fish house.
Go.
Stop the rising cost of food now. Grow your own food. Provide for your family and earn an income with Plant Doctor's Hydro Aqua of number 30 Matilda Road, Princestown. Grow safe, clean, and organic with your hydroponic supplies, organic potting soil, fertilizers, pesticides, and seeds. Let us help you grow and earn. Call 379-6710 or WhatsApp us at 372-9440. Plant Doctor's Hydro Aqua. Let's grow TNT together, one plant at a time.
Munich Home and Garden specializes in hardware, paint, home decor, tools, agricultural supplies, pet supplies, car accessories, appliances, and much more. Located at Val Park Shopping Plaza, Atlantic Plaza, Point Lisas, and Eastern Main Road, St. Joseph. Shopping comfort with our well-secured outlets. Call us at 663-5163 or visit the Munich Home and Garden Facebook page or www.municht.com. Munich Home and Garden, where we make shopping a fun experience. Calling all farmers, fishermen, and agri-entrepreneurs. The Agricultural Development Bank is offering its flagship product, the New Reality Loan. Get up to 80% financing for any viable business in agro-processing, agri-services, or farming with an effective interest rate of 3 to 5%. The New Reality Loan can assist with business startup, expansion, or product rehabilitation, working capital, debt consolidation, or for the purchase of new equipment. Visit one of our convenient locations in San Fernando, Chaguanas, Sangre Grande, Port of Spain, and Tobago. Come in and we'll make your dreams a reality with our New Reality Loan. Call toll-free 800-4ADB. That's 800-4232, or visit www.adbtt.com. The Agricultural Development Bank, growing stronger together.
So this is another part of Wasamaki, perhaps more towards its origin. This is a work in progress showroom, I imagine.
Yes, so this is where everything started. 24 years ago, this was our filtration room. This was our fish house over there where we invested heavily. And we were growing fish and we were exporting them to Canada, and then we lost out on the market. We couldn't get flights on Caribbean Airlines. Things like that, and then eventually we got out-competed in price by the Far East, really. So we shut everything down. It's been sitting here for 15, 20 years without any fish, and then with COVID and me being on the farm and this being my passion, we slowly started it back, and with people spending more time in their house and their garden, people started buying fish locally from us. And over the last 2 years, we've brought back the fish, so that kind of the heart of Wasamaki has come back again. We've now have this showroom that we're setting up over here. We have the fish going, and I spend time over here. So part of my passion is my fish, and part of me helping to save the watershed is really to keep all of these fish behind me. These are all fish from the ponds and my rivers right here.
But those kind of look like tetras.
Yes, there's all different types of tetras within Trinidad. Trinidad was connected to South America. A lot of these South American fish that are expensive. You also find in Trinidad. I have a passion for them. I collect them and I show other people how to keep them. But having them in my fish tank also allows people to realize what is out in the streams.
What is in the canal by the house?
What is in the canals by the house, and we need to save that. We need to keep those canals clean so that all of this life that has no voice, I'm hoping to give it voice so that we should keep them intact.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the life in there, but the oneness of it all. We are all using the water. At some point in time, it finds its way back to us.
If we kill the water and we contaminate it, eventually we will die. So it's really about healing the planet, keeping the water clean, keeping our food clean, and just living in balance.
And healing the planet, while sounding quite grand, it really just starts with your home space.
Exactly, and that's what we teach in permaculture all the time. You start right outside your back door. Don't take on what anybody else is doing. If you do it right, other people will see it happening. They will hopefully take it on. And if everyone makes their effort, eventually the country is clean.
So while we have life, tell me about your fish house. How many tanks we have? How many varieties of fish we have? I imagine you don't just do local fish, right?
No, we do a variety of different fish. When we started 25 years ago, we had 30 different types of African cichlids.
And would that be because that's where you were from?
Partially because that's where I'm from. So it was fish that I was familiar with in Kenya. They also come from Tanzania and Malawi. But really there was a demand for them in the foreign markets for those types of fish, and that's why we started growing them and exporting them. And now there's just a demand for different types of rare fish, and I seem to have this knack of breeding rare fish that other people are not breeding. So some of the catfish that we're breeding, most other people in Trinidad have not. So we're breeding those fish, we're breeding discus, we're breeding some goldfish, we're breeding different types of guppies. We have a variety of things because any client can walk in and they have different tastes and they have different wallet sizes, so that we have fish from $2 up to fish that are $600 or $700 in here that people will spend their money on. And it's interesting because if you use any kind of chemicals in this system, you'll kill all your fish. So it's teaching me many of the characteristics of the fish, the behaviors of the fish, and how I can work with them, which I will then use in the general space of the farm as well. And it teaches other people that come into this space also how to look after things. So I can go out into my drain and I can find a turtle, I can find a zanji, I can find little other fish because we don't use those chemicals. Our drains are clean. And that is what I would hope everyone's drains look like in the long run, if we're really gonna make a difference on this planet.
How does one get information on the fish farm that's happening at Wasamaki? Let's talk about your social presence for a while.
Right.
Do I just go to Wasamaki? I imagine you have a Mako book and an Instagram and all them things, right?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Those are our two main platforms. On Facebook, if you want to learn more about the farm, there is Wasamaki Permaculture. If you want to learn about the fish, there is Tropical Fish TT.
These are Instagram handles?
These are Instagram handles. On Facebook, it's Permaculture Trinidad. And on Facebook, it's Tropical Fish Trinidad again. If you want to learn about me, I'm Farmer Earl on Instagram.
Also the barefoot runner, right?
Yes, so I also run barefoot. Part of just what I do. So I'm also an ultra marathon.
What's been your biggest learning curve with the fish?
So I think it's about just making sure you do your water changes because different fishes like different conditions. So certain fish we use rainwater, certain fish we use different types of leaves from the farm to change the water composition. Certain fish we use different types of rocks in the water to change the mineral content of the water. And it's really about just spending time observing them and making sure that you follow certain patterns so that you feed them on time, make sure the food is good, make sure the water conditions are good, and you start getting interesting results.
So you're not just keeping fish, you're actually learning about the systems and environments that your fish thrive in.
Yeah, so in a sense, Samaki Ecosystem is the bigger system, and then a fish tank like here is a mini ecosystem where you have to learn all the conditions to make it correct so that the fish thrive, otherwise they will belly up very quickly.
So what's the best piece of advice you would give to somebody who's going crazy from being in their house from COVID? They say, let me get a little fish tank. What we go in the pet shop, we buy a fish tank, we buy some gravel, that's the end of the story, right? What should I be doing with my little fish tank?
Well, you buy your fish tank, you put in your gravel, you wash your gravel, you put it in, you put in the water, you let it circulate for a couple of days, and then you introduce 1 or 2 fish at a time. Don't go and buy a whole set and put them in your tank. Because in the fish tank, which is your little ecosystem, you want all your little bacteria growing that will break down the waste from the fish. And when you first start a tank, it's very sterile. And over time, just from the atmosphere, all the bacteria will start showing up. They will start populating your filter, and they will handle all the ammonia that your fish are producing. If you throw a lot of fish in right at once, a lot of ammonia will produce. It'll kill your fish very quickly because it's toxic to them. But as the bacteria work in there, they break down the ammonia, they make it into nitrates, and then either your water change or the plants that you're growing in your tank will take up that nitrates, and you will balance out your system.
Because the plants in the aquarium play a big part as well, right?
So the plants will take up the nitrates, the bacteria will detoxify the ammonia, and the fish will keep the system functioning.
So I set my tank, I let it run empty for a couple of days, you said.
With water, yes.
Even with water,
No
yeah,
fish.
handy, yeah. And then I slowly start to introduce species and populations.
Yes.
the
Depending
tank.
on the size of your tank, if you have a little tank, put 2 fish. Next couple of weeks, put 3 or 4 more fish. And then eventually it's like 1 inch of fish per gallon of water is the rule. So if you have a little 20 gallon, you can put 20 inches of fish in there. Ideally 20 little 1 inch fish. And that's what you aim towards over 2 months.
Okay. And
If
then
you put 20 fish in at once, within a week, everything will probably be dead.
with your experience of the last 2 decades, right? If I were to give you the magic wand now and say you can fix a couple of problems in one go, what might you do with that one? Where is the greatest need of support, production, industry, or creativity within the farm? What do you think is missing?
I think people are missing.
People are missing.
People are missing. And most farmers that you talk to will find that they're overworked because there's no labor that's accessible within the system that's affordable for sometimes them to produce what they want to produce. So people are missing in the system. We're making do as best we can with the small team of 4 or 5 people that we have here. But for a 30-acre site, we could have a lot more people on here. It's just that the logistics of sometimes having more people and for them to be productive enough to pay for the costs as well as themselves and to make a living. Farm life's very demanding. A lot of people that volunteer here, they volunteer for a couple of months and then they burn out because there is a lot of that's needed done on this farm. The paybacks are very small. It's a lifestyle that I've chosen so that we enjoy being in a clean area without chemicals, with a lot of wildlife around us. But we're not rich. But the richness is in
Not
what we
rich in
have around us.
material, in monetary wealth.
In monetary values. The value of what we find is what surrounds us is important to us. It's important to my children. It's important to people that I interact with. And I love this space and I love being in this country. And I feel blessed to be here, but it is challenging some days. It is hard. Mondays are hard.
Mondays. Because
My
again,
days run from 7 in the morning till 11 in the night.
11.
Yes.
Wow. And that's a very long day. I can
Feeding
see by-
fish, it's dealing with farm work, it's dealing with social media, it's dealing with consulting work,
Give me
it's
a day.
dealing with stroke.
Give me a day.
So
But-
I get up at 7.
You wipe the ampy out your eye at 7.
No, I wipe the ampy on I try and start with breakfast, so at least I have energy to go and tackle. So I'm out on the farm by 7. I'm on the farm, so we feed our fish. I deal with other stuff on the farm. I'm back in the house for lunch at 12:30. I get an hour for lunch, and then I'm back in the fish house doing stuff with fish, or sometimes I have to run errands if the tractor's broken down, if we need equipment, or if we need to purchase things. Then I have to deal with social media where I'm taking pictures and I'm posting it to Instagram, posting it to Facebook. We try and keep active on social media because that is where a lot of our advertising is. And then I'm also a consultant where sometimes I'm writing reports or I am teaching online or I'm training people in Barbados online. And then I have dinner, I come back into the fish house, I collect fish eggs, I feed fish, and by 10 or 11, I'm in bed.
Wow. And no 2 days are the same.
No 2 days are the same. My weekends is when I try and catch up from the week.
Which is why Monday is hard.
And Monday is hard. That's when I break down. And no one talks to me on a Monday.
Is there anything else you would like to add or leave us with or have us think about? Because we had a wrap up and let you go back to your farm life. So.
Right. No, I just encourage people to think about the lifestyle that we have. Think about permaculture. Think about integrating yourself into the environment that you live in, so that you don't have to fight everything that's around you, but learn to tolerate and live in balance. And if you need information, we're just a message away through any of our social media handles. You can find us, and you can come here and take workshops. You can come here and take a tour. Very soon you can come here and have a picnic on our site and just walk around and see what's happening. So all of that is happening. It's kind of our adjustment to COVID. It's our adjustment to people being locked up in their house. Everyone's calling us to see if they can come and spend some time. The site is safe. And that's what people are looking for right now.
Well, Earl, we've spoken about not putting all the eggs in one basket, but I think we have put all the bottles in a row. And I think definitely season 2 we should come back and maybe specify and focus in on a few of the many activities and opportunities of learning and shared knowledge that you have here on the farm. Earl, I would like to thank you very much for having us.
And thank you for coming
here today. Thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
What an episode Samaki Ecosystems and Earl have given us today. All of the information that you could want is all available online. Google everything. You have the power to learn. This is all about education, and this is all about sharing knowledge. Here on Harvest, that's what we are doing for you. We would like to thank Earl and everyone here at Samaki Ecosystems for sharing their bounty with us. Speaking of bounties, this is one of the loud lollies, all natural, no sugar, fresh fruit product. This is delicious. I can tell you mango, passion fruit, and I can't remember what was the third thing, but nice. We all in this together. To my daughter, Daddy loves you, baby. Harvest, we out. Hey, episode done. Rock so, boy.